Welcome to Brand Snack, where we take a 10-minute break, munch on our favorite snack, while we have bite-sized discussions with brands people crave and love.
Hey,
What's going on?
welcome.
Well, it's great to be here. I gotta tell you, I'm excited to be at the corporate headquarters of Shipley Do-Nuts in Houston, Texas. And I'm with Flynn Dekker. He is the CEO of Shipley Do-Nuts. And we're gonna have such a great conversation because this is a brand that has been around for quite some time. We're talking about nearly a century?
Almost a century, yeah.
About 100 years, a brand in the making for almost 100 years. It's gonna be a remarkable story. Not all companies make it past 2 years.
No.
Think about 100
Incredible.
years.
I haven't been here the whole time, just
Of course
FYI.
not. Of course
Yeah.
not. And on Brand Snack, as you know, what we like to do is munch on our favorite snack and talk about the brand story. And so we'll unpack that in a moment. But before we do, one of the things I like to do is ask you a random question. What was your favorite snack growing up, Flynn?
Well, it's easier to show you than tell you. And believe it or not, don't be shocked, I happen to have it right here.
Oh, great.
And it is
Oh, nice.
Chex Mix.
Okay.
Trusty Chex Mix.
They're trusty.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with the savory Chex Mix. It's actually one of my favorites growing up as well. I remember having a lot of it at the doctor's office.
You went to a different kind of doctor than I
Just
did.
kind of waiting around and getting my name called to get to see the doctor with my mom. But what does it remind you of?
Well, I think, first of all, it's made primarily with corn, and I grew up in the Midwest, so corn was very important to us there. It's a little trip back to my heritage, but I like the sweet and savory characteristics of it.
So obviously there's a lot of different shapes that come with, Chex Mix. And that's what made it very cool for me is that it's not a boring snack. There's a lot of variety with it, right? This is the perfect snack to pass time, right?
Yeah.
What else does it remind you of? Just curious.
Well, I just think, it's comfort food, right? In a way that I remember from my childhood. We didn't have a lot of snacking in my house. It was pretty much straight down the line, Midwestern fare. But this was one of those things. It was a nice treat, and it's hearty. It's got a different mouthfeel because of the different ingredients and different types of things in there.
This was my favorite. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what that is exactly. Do you know what it's called? I've never known what that's called, but I like it too.
It's almost like a piece of bread, like a crouton.
Yeah.
Who do you think is the target audience for like a Chex Mix?
Honestly, I think it's a little bit like Shipley Do-Nuts in that it has endured over time. I don't know that Chex Mix is any less relevant than it was back when we were kids than it is now. And I think Shipley's the same way. In fact, we're growing faster than we ever have. And we started all the way back in 1936, and it feels like we've kind of become that staple or that consistent in a lot of people's lives. It used to be when I was a kid, your parents would put that was the party mix, right? And I think that's even in the name, right? And so it was like you would put it out for your fancy parties or whatever. So I think it's always been kind of that coming of age snack. Even though I think as a kid I liked it too, right? But it was something that the adults would put out for other adults. It's hard to find anyone who doesn't like Chex Mix.
That's true.
At the end of the day, even if you don't love it, you like it.
So like, Chex Mix, and in this particular case, this was, Flynn's favorite snack growing up. Like branding, there are certain characteristics and elements of the brand, of the Shipley Do-Nuts brand, that keep people craving more. Like they really want, it draws them in, right? What about the iconic Shipley Do-Nuts brand keeps people coming back for more?
Yeah, I think it's evolved a little bit over time. The business has remained relatively sort of consistent since day one, but it's added and added, as you might expect, over 9 decades. It started out as a Shipley cream glazed donut, and it is this hot dough made in a fryer. It's fried on 2 sides. You have to flip it over midway, and it's just this savory thing. And when you get it hot, there's nothing better in your life. It will replace Chex Mix and everything else in your life.
So to your point, it was originally just a glazed donut.
It was regularly just a glazed donut that Lawrence Shipley, the senior, made when he came back from the war in 1936. Started here in Houston, and it was a wholesale business. He sold it to other businesses who then sold it. And then over time, they added more variety and really were kind of a traditional donut shop. and still are to some extent today.
Now, do you know when was the first donut shop approximately?
In the 50s, I
Okay,
believe they
okay.
moved into retail for the first time and became their own, started selling their own product to consumers as
Wow.
well as wholesale.
You know, a lot of people outside of your staple locations like Houston, Texas, I know you're in Arkansas, you're in Oklahoma, but outside of those may not know of Shipley's, but the truth is, it is growing like crazy.
Yeah.
Tell
It's
us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I don't want to compare us to other brands because we are unique and special, but other brands come from a certain region of the country. There's anticipation before they get there, and that's what it is with Shipley. It's amazing that when we go to Colorado, Maryland, there are people waiting, and those initial sales, initial lines of people is really astounding. So the brand sort of precedes us, and it's up to us to sort of be good stewards of that. But we opened up 24 new locations. We've got 368 locations now across 12 states, and we'll almost double the number of stores we open in 2025.
That's a lot of locations and a lot of growth. And you think that you're not in all states, but that growth can be replicated in other states. So, hundreds of locations can be in one state, for example.
Yeah.
And that's what you're shooting for, right?
We think we literally have thousands of more opportunities in the United States, probably just 1,000 alone just in the southeast quadrant that we exist in now.
Wow, that's great. I want to share with you guys the amount of effort and detail that goes into the storytelling here at Shipley Do-Nuts is really impressive. I've had a chance to collaborate with some of the marketing folks here and see, all the creative and it's really top notch, the photography, and it's a visual brand. It's all about the colors and the designs.
I like to use the word whimsical, right? There's whimsy, and it's a happy product. I've never seen anybody cry while eating a donut. A tub of ice cream, yes, but a donut, never. And then when you combine that with sort of the variety that we have, it lends itself, and it's super photogenic, right? When you think about the donut rack and all the colors that it contains, it makes it easy to really just make the product pop, and that's really what we're all about, which is handmade quality products, and then how do you capture them in the best light?
I think pop is a good word to describe the brand and how it's being developed over time. The red, for example, just pops. When you're building a brand, and let's do this, like I always do here at Brand Snack, why don't we pull up the logo? Let's pull it up real quick on the screen and let's critique it. This is a nice little critique where we think about design, right? Design is such an important facet of branding because it's package, right? It isn't just the story and it isn't just the logo. It's all of these things coming together to create a unique experience in the customer's perspective. So talking about the logo, it's a round shape donut. It's clear that it's a donut. And you have the hyphen there. Let's talk about the hyphen. Why the hyphen?
That's going to be a tough one to explain. That was something the Shipley family did way back in the day in the 1930s that they felt set them apart, right?
Oh, cool.
It's a dough nut, and they accentuated the part of dough because they were in the dough business.
When you're in a brand that has nearly 100 years of history, sometimes bits and pieces of the story get lost. Yeah. And you have to kind of go back in time and kind of figure it out and put the puzzle pieces together. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, even when I've been with other brands where, they have a shorter life cycle, it's hard to, there's never really an archivist, right? There's nobody there that's writing that down because the day it's happening, it doesn't really seem that important. It's years later that it's important, right? So going back and trying to retrieve that history is really important to us because we want to honor it and respect it. And we want to be, delicate and good stewards of the brand, right? I don't want to go and say, like, there are opportunities to adjust this brand, to dial it up, but I want to stay true to what we've been for 88 years, right?
Absolutely. In marketing, there's something called a brand essence, and the brand essence, and there's just so much to it that really brings it all together. So you don't want to just peel or pick at the DNA of it and then alter the essence. But you were telling me about an intern that you guys have now that's been tasked to do something pretty interesting.
It's interesting because, we were talking about the history and all that, and I was telling you on just a moment ago, like how interesting it was that I just got a new sort of piece of the story. And it sort of changed some of the perspective I had on the business, but it came with all these blanks, like this happened on this date, but the date wasn't there. So luckily, we have a new intern whose last name happens to be Shipley. And so she is part of the Shipley family, and and they live here in the Houston market, and they're beautiful people, lovely people, and so her first task is to go gather the history and to fill in all the blanks.
Remarkable. You know, in branding especially, we always like to talk about the story, and without a story, you don't really connect with people in a differentiated kind of way. So the history makes a big part of that story. And if there's chapters missing, you kind of have to go out there and fill in the blanks. So that's what you guys are doing now.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you look forward, right, and as the president of, as the CEO of Shipley Do-Nuts, that's your job, is how do you tell that story? What does it look like?
I don't know that there's too many brands out there that get a lot of mileage out of how old they are, right? It is a remarkable part of our story, but we have to lead with what is the brand about, right? What is the brand essence, as you talked about it? Ours is quality, handcrafted, fresh. Those are the things that I think are meaningful to people. And what's beautiful about our business, and what I think creates a moat around it, if you will, is the fact that we do this every day. You're not buying the product we made yesterday, you're buying the product we made today. So that's not easy to do. Sort of the imperfection of the logo is reflective of what we do, because when you hand make something every day,
it's like artisan.
And that's what makes, I think, our
Great
brand
art.
and our food perfect.
And great art.
That's it.
So one of the aspects that makes up the brand essence that we're talking about is the brand's purpose. And, not all companies will have the same longevity like we talked about. We're now nearly 100 years in operation. But your purpose helps you tick a little bit longer. Once you know what that is, you can really dial that in, right? Some people, or some companies rather, will forget their purpose. And sometimes that will drive them out of business because maybe another competitor does it better, right? And so your brand purpose, from what I gather, is you're making life delicious.
Life delicious, that's it.
Every day.
Every day.
With all the donuts, every order. And can you explain, what's happening on the other side in the consumer's life, and how Shipley Do-Nuts plays a role in their life?
Yeah, if you think about, our product, it is often a celebration. And we like to think that like every visit is a special occasion, and that sounds very marketing, but it really is. When you think about how we were all introduced to donuts, it was going with your family on Saturday or Sunday, or maybe a weekday before after school. It was you won the game and somebody celebrated with donuts, a work party or event, right? So we tend to be centered around celebration, and that's a beautiful thing to be able to build off of. And then when you have such a variety of products like we do, like we have one brand, but making life delicious really for us covers a lot of things. It's celebrating the joy of life, and it's celebrating this handmade, delicious sort of product that we sell.
Yeah, it's almost like when we were talking about Chex Mix, right? The variety of flavors, it was created to suit the party, right? Mm-hmm. And same thing with Shipley Do-Nuts, I think, is you have so much. How many varieties and flavors do you have?
We have 60 plus varieties of donuts and kolaches.
Wow. And the kolaches is an important piece of it too, because it's actually, I learned about it recently. It is a Texas kind of thing. Is that right?
It's a Czech. It actually came from Czechoslovakia. So the Czechs brought it over, and it's specifically to Texas. And kolache could either be sweet or savory. Ours happen to be savory with sausage in them. We just introduced one that has egg and cheese and either sausage or bacon in it. They're delicious. So we have the sweet and the savory balance on our menu, which makes us kind of unique. We're not a traditional donut shop, even though we sell some traditional donuts.
Yeah. And it goes back to your brand purpose, which is to make life delicious, right? There's moments in life when you crave something sweet. There's moments in life when you crave something salty and savory, and you have that, right? Otherwise, you would be limiting your brand purpose.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the great thing for us is we have one brand, but we have multiple products, right? And a lot of folks don't have that latitude that we have.
Give us a peek into what the story will look like in the future?
Our focus is on, we're a mostly franchise model business. We have two customers. We have our customers who walk in the store every day, and then we have our franchisees. Our job here is to take care of both equally well. And so it's introducing selectively new products into the system. Like, what are things that customers want? How can we adapt to, I don't know, modern trends, but never change who we are? So the majority of what we do will stay consistent and the same. And then, but we'll from time to time introduce unique flavors or unique items onto the menu. At the same time, continue to grow our footprint across the country, because I haven't found a street corner yet where they don't like donuts.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that with regards to your two customers. I think now in the next, I would say your next 100 years, given that you are a franchise
I like
model,
your optimism. Another 100 years, good.
the next 100 years, what does it look like? I think it's really about making sure that those that will tell the story to their audiences, which in my opinion would be your franchisees, understand the story and are great stewards of that and can protect it and adequately communicate it and share it with their team members and ultimately their customers that visit their locations.
I'll tell you, I've worked for several brands, and I've never seen more brand love from random strangers than when I go to the airport shopping and I'm wearing the Shipley logo, and never once has it been a negative experience. People come up to me and they want to share, oh my gosh, I grew up with this. Oh my gosh, my favorite donut is this. Oh, I love kolaches. And that's a responsibility, but it's also hugely empowering to the entire team that there's already this built-in brand love, and it's just our job to continue to fan those flames.
It's very similar to like a Disney or one of these other, like Warner Brothers has been around for so long and they have so much reach, right? That's another one, reach, brand reach. You're impacting not only those from the present, but you're impacting people from the past and the future, which is just remarkable. Well, Flynn, I got to tell you, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come and visit. It's been great working with your team and really collaborating with your marketing. We really wish you guys the best of luck in the next 100 years in operation.
Thank you. I like your optimism. Thank you so much, Manuel. This has been a real pleasure.